Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to On Your Mental. This is the podcast where we share candid, open, and sometimes vulnerable conversations between and about men. We've got new episodes every week, so if you're not already, make sure that you're subscribed. This week, I have with me my friend Devon, and we're talking about his experience having parents who went through divorce when he was very young, and then my own experience where it's just been me and my mom my whole life, and talking about just that dynamic and how it affected just our outlook on relationships, our own relationships, and just us as young men. Super cool talk. I really enjoyed it. I was really kind of surprised by the whole conversation with Devon. So yeah, I hope y'all enjoy it too, and I'll see y'all next week. Bye-bye. Before we talk about what we want to talk about, first I'll say, hey Dev, thanks, welcome to On Your Mental. I appreciate you coming. I wanted to, because I was listening to it and I showed you that scary thing earlier, I'm trying to find the sound. Okay, so
what's scary thing?
On TikTok, that video I just showed you.
Oh,
the lady with the face.
Yeah.
This sound, super fucking creepy.
I already don't like it,
and I hate it. But you would always send me all that scary shit. Now my page is full of it. Actually, I can't scroll for 5 minutes without getting some creepy thing.
There's that sound, and then there's this other one that it's almost like part of the sound effect is like a game show.
I know which
one
you're talking about. Yeah,
kind of, but then it's got this weird distortion to it.
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
I can't picture it, but it's anyways, what that got me thinking about, seeing all those, was ghost stories. Because I know you believe in ghosts.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm starting to think I might, man.
Really?
Because I remember before I was so against it. The first time you told me a ghost story, when you told us the one in your mom's place.
My mom's place.
Yeah. Oh god, dude! Now I got chill just thinking about it, man. Oh man, but that, now I feel like maybe I'm on your side because I still haven't experienced anything myself.
I've always said that I was just a kid, so this is what happened, or what I thought happened.
Yeah.
I guess if you want to say I was dreaming or whatever, take it take that information as you will. You know what I mean? It's not. I was never trying to convince you. I swear to God, you know what I mean? This is what I saw. You know what I mean? If you believe me or not, you know what I mean? It's yeah.
I'm inclined to believe. Oh man.
Well, okay. Well, let me put it this way.
Yeah.
You don't believe in ghosts.
At this point, not fully. I wouldn't I
you
wouldn't
don't
just expect them. No.
Would you play with the Ouija board?
No.
But that's the thing.
Yeah.
There's so many people that say they don't believe in ghosts, but you ask them something like, "Would you play with the Ouija board?" And they're like, "Well, no."
Fucking chance.
They're like, "Well, no," and it's like, "Well, why? You don't believe in ghosts?
What's the harm?
There's literally no harm if it's all make believe. It's all fake. You know what I mean?" And then I guess people say, well, on the off chance, I don't, but yeah, but then,
on the off chance I die.
On the off chance I get fucking haunted. No, but yeah.
The thing with Ouija boards too is that's the one thing my mom is scared of. She's told me before that she would not mess with a Ouija board. She doesn't necessarily believe in ghosts or anything, but she made it really clear, don't fuck around with it. Because I told her before, we were thinking about making one.
Wait, didn't you guys?
They did.
One hangout, they actually made a fucking Ouija board. And
dude, you remember the story too? So I want to say it was Seb, AJ, maybe AJ. I don't know.
I think it was AJ. It was AJ, I think.
Probably Jesse Dawson.
Yeah. And
some other people. But anyways, they said they made a Ouija board. And you're supposed to say goodbye to a Ouija board?
Yeah.
Right?
So
and they didn't.
Yeah.
They said that they did.
And they said some spooky shit.
They were saying that when they were out at the community center parking lot, they were just chilling there. And then that's when they were retelling the story.
And a light
went out. The light went out. The light in the parking lot went out. As soon as they said, we didn't say goodbye, the light goes out. Are you kidding me?
I'd be pretty, I guess I'd be pretty scared, but they're probably looking for something to be scared about.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Once you get your mindset there, that's with the videos, watching all those and me starting to get creeped out by them. As soon as I start thinking about that, it's easy to start making things seem
especially
something going on.
Because even something I guess I don't know if it happens in a fucking apartment like this, but if you're in a house, particularly older houses, they make noise.
We get noises. We get noises.
I mean, you're in an apartment, so there's people
That's the thing, is it's for sure something explainable. But at 2 in the morning, I hear a door close or something like that, and Evan's not home. He's at work. I'm I could have sworn that was a door closed. And I get up out of my room, nothing's there. I don't know.
But another thing too is like here in Canada, or at least this side.
What, Canadian ghosts?
No. That's not what I was gonna say. I was gonna say here in Canada, especially this side, there's not that much history to like the land, and you know what I mean. And that apparently, I'm not super, but anyways, that apparently plays a big part.
It would make sense
ghosts
to me.
and hauntings,
More
and
spirits.
I hate using the word ghosts though, because like you know what I mean. Like when you say ghosts, people have this idea of like oh, boo, like a fucking like a white like boo ghost or something like that. You know what I mean? When it's not really like it's like, but spirit sounds kind of funny too. But you know what I mean, right? Like paranormal shit. And like in other parts of the world, it's like there's a lot of history, a lot of death.
And there's like folklore, like stories about it and stuff in other parts of the world too. Like people will sit around and actually tell like repeated ghost stories.
Well, another one's good. Like, I mean, I guess even if you don't believe in ghosts, maybe you wouldn't want to, but like move into a house where someone was like killed or like
Amityville Horror.
Yeah, or someone held like satanic rituals or something.
That's
but I guess even if you don't believe in ghosts, you still wouldn't really want to live in a fucking house where somebody died on the couch or whatever. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Nah, it's like cult stuff too.
Yeah.
All that falls in line with me with just like creepy shit I don't want to mess around with. Like I don't want to be a part of any of this.
Yeah.
Anyways, the reason why we're actually here today, never mind the ghost stories,
I forgot.
Is we're here to talk about our own experiences with our parents or our parent structure. For me, of course, it's just my mom and my dad, as I mentioned at the end of season 1, was a sperm donor, so I don't know my dad. I've gotten many jokes about it, and I love it. I love every dad joke ever. I used to be so against it, and then I figured I might as well join him.
That's pretty fun.
I feel like, honestly, like the way it started out was y'all made way more jokes, and then it got to a point where I was just like, I got to catch up, otherwise I'm just going to feel terrible. So I think now I probably make more jokes about me not having a dad than y'all make jokes about me not having a dad.
And it's brought it down to like...
Oh, yeah. Like now it's like whatever.
Yeah,
it can't hurt me anymore.
Which is pretty funny. But also fucked up.
Oh, yeah. 100%, man.
Like people watching be like, people joke about that? Like...
If y'all didn't make fun of the fact that I don't have a dad, I feel like we wouldn't be as good of friends.
Yeah. People don't understand it like, until you're like, part of that.
Until you're making fun of the kid for not having a dad.
Part of that friend dynamic.
Then you understand.
But, yeah.
And then for yourself, your parents are split up, right? Yes. And so that's its own like dynamic growing up as a kid. And these kinds of things I feel like might shape part of who you are as a young man.
Yeah.
So I don't even know some of the answers to stuff I want to ask you.
Okay,
like when did your parents split up?
I think I was about, I want to say 6 or 7.
Really, that young?
So I was actually pretty young.
Yeah. Do you remember it, like when it happened?
Yeah. I remember because we used to live everyone used to live together. Yeah. Obviously, like me, my dad, my mom, and my grandma, because she was already pretty old at that time. Because my parents were like really old. But
your parents are really old. How old are your parents?
My dad's 73.
Your parents are really old, yeah.
You're like, they're not that old. He's 70. Yeah, my dad's like, I'm 24. My dad's 73. Just turned 73, and my mom's 63. So it's a big age difference.
Okay, yeah,
yeah. But no, so we all used to live together, obviously, and then they split up. But no, I think because I was young, like around 6 or 7. I think because I was younger, it ended up not being as bad, I guess, as it could have been, because I didn't get to see too much of that, like them not getting along and like the toxicity when I was older and could understand more of it,
like what's happening.
Yeah, like what's actually happening. Yeah. I mean, obviously there was still a lot of things, going on even after they split up, because going back and forth between houses is a whole other like issue. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think in terms of like living with parents that are split up, I think it was a little bit on the better side. Obviously it's better if your parents just stay together, but I think it was a little bit on the better side just because I was younger when it happened. Yeah, I feel like when stuff like that, it can be like traumatic in a way, right? But when you're younger, your brain maybe just doesn't fully take it in, I guess, in the same way. You don't analyze it. Yeah, well, it just happens. And you don't understand a lot of things that are going on, right? It's just like, like mom and dad are fighting. You know,
it's like kids today watching people wear masks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People are wearing masks.
Yeah. They're not going to understand like the deeper issue, I guess. Yeah. But there were still things that
It's funny for me being someone with only a single parent.
Yeah.
Similarly, in a way, I didn't like, I was not like conscious of it until a later age.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too.
Way.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too, because like obviously you know that like how like what a family is and how that dynamic works, but it kind of never, I get like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it kind of never clicked for you until a later age, until you started to understand that stuff, right? Yeah.
And I don't remember the first time I had a talk with my mom about it, but just her telling me that this is the deal.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Your dad's a sperm donor. I picked him out. Like, this is
how old were you when your mom told you that?
She's never not told me.
Yeah.
But I would have to say ballpark. Like, I remember it. I have really bad memory too, by the way. I remember things
really bad
up
memory,
to maybe.
Really good memory?
I have bad memory. I have terrible memory for long term. I don't remember a lot of stuff when I was younger, but I remember in grade 1, that was the first time I was like really aware that things were different because I don't have a dad. Because in grade 1, I lived in Yellowknife. And
I
forgot
about that, bro.
In grade 1, I lived in fucking
Yvonne of the Yukon.
Dude, Yvonne of the Yukon? One of the best shows ever. But I remember in grade 1, like it was Father's Day. This is my first memory going what the fuck?
Yeah.
It was Father's Day, and they had me making a portrait was what the thing was. Like, you made a little picture frame for your parents, and then I made a little picture frame, and they're like, "Oh, make one for your mom." And I'm like, "It's Father's Day. Like, what am I doing here?" But that was my first time like being like consciously aware, like, okay, things are going to be different in my life because I don't have a dad.
Yeah.
But I don't remember it before that at all. I don't remember any trouble at all.
Yeah.
You know? So I don't know if that connects in any way, but
well, did you ever feel like you were missing out on things or stuff or you know what I mean, right? Like in terms of having like a father figure around. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And for me, I feel like you might have met my Uncle Ian once.
I feel like I have at least once. I mean, I know Uncle Ian.
Yeah.
You know, we always talk about
and for me, like, he was a father figure at points in my life, right? Because he was just around. Like, when he still lived in Richmond, like, we would go visit him fairly frequently. And then my mom had a friend, Brad, who I've talked about before with y'all, and he was also like a father figure. So I had father figures, but I did always know that I didn't have a dad. And then sometimes, I would feel like I'm missing out on things, but it would only be around like holidays.
Yeah.
You know, because then like we're always making accommodations to go places or something. Like Christmas, we're always visiting family because we don't have a full family here, or people are coming to see us because we don't have a full family here.
Yeah,
not that that's the reason why.
I feel like what helps is the fact that you have such a close relationship with your mom.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Because if you were a little bit like not as close with your mom, you would feel like you're missing another connection.
Yeah,
from, like,
you'd feel like pretty alone, I would imagine.
Yeah. So I think that's good that you kind of have that connection with your mom, because like I don't know, man, like just seeing you and your mom's relationship, a lot of people don't have that, you know what I mean, myself included. Like it's just the way it is sometimes, you know what I mean, especially with if there's like a bigger age gap between the parent and child, at least in my opinion, right? There's more of like a disconnect, but I don't know, you and your mom
somehow make it work. Yeah. And maybe it is just like the proximity, like it was always just her and me there.
Yeah.
And so that makes me wonder, because for me it was holidays where I noticed that things were different. That makes me wonder about, in your case, going through a split family. What was that like around holidays? Like,
well, around holidays, they like my mom and my dad made it work, because it would be like, for example, Christmas, it'd be like Christmas Day we would always spend at my dad's, and that was always a bigger thing, because my dad's side of the family has more family, more extended family, more friends and whatnot.
Junior.
So Junior. So Christmas Day would be more of a big thing there, because there was a lot of family. We'd have like 15,
like that's their day.
Yeah, we'd have 15, 20 people over, and so it would be like my mom would be like, okay, well, the kids will go there on Christmas Day, and Christmas Eve we would go to my mom's and do the whole Christmas thing, like open gifts and whatnot, because their side of the family was smaller, so they didn't mind. Everyone did it on Christmas Eve, so it was fine. So it kind of worked out in that way. But I mean, in terms of holidays, it was not that that big of a deal, because it worked out fine and everything was split, and it ended up just being like having two Christmases, you know what I mean? Because I guess
as a kid, you probably hear that and be like, "Yo, that's sweet."
But in reality, I don't know. it ended up being fine in terms of holidays. I mean, I wouldn't say that was one thing that was strictly negative, you know what I mean? Because it's not like,
not to say that there is a negative about it either, right? Like
no, it all depends.
Yeah,
man. Like realistically, some people are like, it's better off if two parents are split up. If when they're together, it's going to cause more problem for the rest of the family, like the children and, you know what I mean? And kids and stuff like that. Like, it's honestly better off because it does happen. Like some people, you know, they just stay together because like,
for the sake of it,
or because they have a kid. But I think if you're staying together because you have a kid, it all depends on the situation. Like there are people who can make that work and make it okay for the kid. But sometimes staying together, even though they're like really trying, it might put more strain on the child or the children or whatever. Yeah. Than if they were to just split up and, you know, be that
and just make that work.
Just make that work instead. Yeah.
Because I guess, like if you were, I mean, I don't know, right? Because I don't have parents. I have my one. But in my head, it's like if you were in a relationship, imagine yourself in a relationship, right? And you have a child. Yeah. And then you're not happy in the relationship and you're supposed to like somehow generate this positive energy for your kid all the time without being able to make your own life positive. Yeah. You know, I can imagine that being a pretty big weight.
Yeah, like it would be very difficult trying to make things okay for your child or children or whatever. And instead of just like, it'd be very hard to do that.
Yeah. I guess then I wonder, like, were there moments, same question I guess that you asked me, like where I like noticed like something's different? Were there any moments for you where it was like, okay, like my parents are split up and this is affecting me in some way, like this is affecting my life?
Well, one of the big things I would say would be like just living normally at home, in the sense that there were like, we went back and forth between houses, right? Like I'd spend some time with my mom, I'd spend some time with my dad, and it was basically a constant flux on trying to figure out what worked and what didn't. Yeah. Especially balancing like having to go to school and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and sometimes they're like earlier, it got better a little later, but earlier on, like when we were a lot younger, like I'm talking about me and my sister, but when we were a lot younger, maybe like between like 8 to like 13. Yeah. I feel like there was more sort of arguments between my mom and my dad about who would go where and when, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I want the kids at this time, or trying to do something. And my dad would be like, oh no. And they would get in actual arguments, even though they're already split up, whatever. They get in arguments. My mom would come to pick me and my sister up. And, you know, my dad would be like, oh no, I wanted to do this. And then, you know, they'd get in an argument, and we're young. You know what I mean? We don't know what's going on. Oh, mom and dad are like, you know, they yell at each other and whatnot. Like, you know, like pretty badly yell at each other. And then we'd, you know, cry and yeah. So in terms of that was definitely a little bit like difficult. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds difficult even just like thinking about that.
Yeah. It's just like when stuff like that's happening, it's like you're kind of surrounded with, as a kid, you're surrounded with like this negative energy and like, you know what I mean? Your parents are always fighting and whatnot. But like I said before, at least I feel like in terms of families who have split up, we were on the like least worst side of that because I was young. We were younger, but yeah, that was one thing that stuck out. Just kind of just the back and forth, and it's not able to really like settle into a normal like routine. Yeah, routine family is such a big deal at a young age life, too. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's like talking about things sticking out. First of all, I want to say like just listening to you talk about this, like you've clearly put thought into this. At various points in your life, like you have reflected on this experience going through all of this, it sounds like to me.
Yeah, just in general, like that's why I've kind of said to myself, like one of the things that I want for myself is to have at the end of the day a successful like family, you know what I mean? So when I'm looking to, you know, settle down and, you know, get married and whatnot, I want to make sure that it's someone that I'm actually going to stay with. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to put my future children through the same thing that I had to go through. You know what I mean? So I want to make sure that I have a proper family and that, you know, we stay together and that it works out. You know what I mean? That's not to say like I'm going to force something. You know what I mean? Like,
but same thing to your point that you just said, right? Where it's like you stay together for the sake of staying together for a kid. That wouldn't be something.
Yeah. Like I don't want to do that. I just want to make sure that I'm very certain when I actually do settle down with someone, and you know that's gonna work out. Obviously, it could not in the long run, but I want to try my best to make it work. You know what I mean? Because I feel like too many people these days just kind of like willy-nilly just, oh, let's get married. You know what I mean? And not thinking of like the future, and not just the future as in 5 years in the future, but like 10, 20 years in the future, right? Like when you get married, it's supposed to be, you know,
it's supposed to be forever.
till death do us part, right?
Yeah.
But these days, like what's the fucking divorce rate? It's like
Yeah.
what, 50-60%?
Bro,
Like it's crazy high.
When you like look at our group of friends, right? I was just talking about this with Nathan and Evan the other day.
Yeah.
And we were thinking about our whole group. Let's like take us as a sample. You know what I mean? Take us as a sample group. You got 20 guys. And out of the 20 guys, I think we could count 3 or 4 people that are their parents are still together, or it's their original parents.
That's actually a good. Yeah, that's a sample group. Yeah.
Like, what the fuck,
yeah,
man?
Yeah.
And so it's not particularly encouraging.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, do you think maybe you're still learning? I mean, I would assume I'm still learning. I would assume you're still learning.
Yeah.
What would make it work for you in that relationship, in that marriage, where you wouldn't have to step away from it?
Well, I wouldn't say not necessarily what I'm looking for in that partner. It would be more like things like, I think knowing that you'll be successful like in your marriage goes beyond just like, you know, your feelings towards that person. You know, like, oh, like I love this person, you know what I mean? And that's all I need, you know what I mean? You have to think of other things. There is more than that, you know what I mean? And on the other side, sometimes people only like basically sometimes people only look at one aspect when you know wanting to get. I'm not a fucking expert on this stuff.
Yeah,
but
no, none of us, neither of us are. But still, it's a good conversation to have.
This is just my opinion. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? But like sometimes people only focus on one aspect of, I guess, a relationship or a person and say, oh, that's fine. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I love this person, I'll make it work. Or I don't know, if we want to get more cynical, oh, this person's really rich. Well, you know what I mean? I'll
try and make it work for that.
Yeah, I'll try and make it work with that. You know what I mean? But I think it's a combination of things like, you know, how you feel about the person, your financial situation for both people in terms of getting married. You know what I mean? Because wedding itself is fucking expensive. Man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, obviously you don't have to spend a bunch of money on your wedding.
And there's so many more people now that are like skipping it.
Yeah.
Which is,
like,
it's wild to me. In my head, I want one for sure.
Yeah.
You know
but that's not what I mean when I say I mean, like financial situation, like jobs and everything, and just general compatibility. More questions about life. Like, do you want children? That's a big one, obviously. I mean, I guess most people would talk about that, you know, before they, but like, I feel like people need to talk about more things before they get married instead of just like the, I don't know if it's traditional or not, but like the kind of surprise proposal, you know what I mean? Where they don't know anything about it. But like, if you've been with someone for long enough, I feel like the topic of
it's
marriage,
okay to discuss it.
Yeah. Like, I feel like the topic of marriage would come up, you know what I mean? And you'd kind of get a feel for how, you know,
how likely that is.
Yeah, how likely that is, or how the both of you feel about the subject, you know what I mean? And yeah, I think it's just thinking of more than one thing in terms of marrying someone. I would kind of check with myself and, you know, kind of think, you know, will this work in the long run? Do all of these things seem compatible, you know, with me and how I behave and how I want to do things, right? But in terms of specific things, I have not put that much thought into it yet because, like, you know,
still young, man. Yeah. 24, 25. Yeah. I gotta worry about that stuff.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you though. It's like you love itself towards another person shouldn't be the only reason to stay with that person too at a given time, if that makes sense. Like,
I get what you're saying, because the way you worded it sounds kind of bad. Yeah, it's like, well, you know, you love the person who fuck everything else.
Exactly. And that I feel like is it's a blind love way of looking at it when you go at it that way. Where if love is the only thing that you need, and love is very important, you know what I mean? Like, love is so important, but love with a partner shouldn't be the driving force in your life. Yeah. It shouldn't be the one thing that anchors you to the other person.
Yes. Well, exactly. That's why they say that you should be happy by yourself and single before you're happy in a relationship. You know what I mean? Because if you put your everything into that other person, then if things don't work out, you're fucked.
You're done. You're done.
Yeah, you're done.
There's to quote one of the greatest romantics ever. Not really. 21 Savage.
He's a Brit.
He is a Brit, which is so crazy. It doesn't make any sense to me, man. he says something about love not really meaning anything on its own. Because like you can love people by being attached to them. That's what he says in one of his songs. You can love somebody just by being attached. And I kind of agree with that. Like you, as a kid, you love your parents no matter what, right? And it's because you're born with them and you stick with them and you love them. Yeah. Right? Like you're just around them. Yeah. And so like, shit, I love you, you know?
Well, I mean,
it doesn't make sense though. Like you know nothing about your parents when you're born, other than
know
they're there with you.
Yeah.
This is maybe not the best example of a person, but think about it in the future. Like you can, like if you worked with the same coworker every single shift that you worked with them, right, and you work side by side, maybe you're in like a more intimate job with them, like you literally work hand in hand with them or something like that. You might end up like just loving this person, like them being with you, love them as a person, but that's just an attachment thing. If that person takes a new job somewhere else, like you're not going to be crushed, you're going to be okay and you're going to move on. Yeah, right? Whereas there are other things I think that fit into a relationship and a marriage outside of just love. Yeah. Because I don't know, to me, love sometimes is just like attachment. If you spend enough time with a person, you're going to love them.
Yeah, that's actually no. That's I feel like
that's maybe a negative way of looking at
it. I feel like that definitely could be seen as negative, but there is a little bit of truth to that. Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, and I feel like a lot of people actually just kind of stay in a relationship because they're comfortable. You know what I mean?
It becomes easy.
It becomes easy, right?
I mean, like, and the idea of getting away from that terrifies them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think especially people who have been in, like, the longer the relationship goes, the kind of the worse it gets. Like, I don't want to say, you know, but I mean, like, if you've been with the same person for 5-6 years and you started at a young age, everything outside of that kind of becomes scary. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like being single, like, fuck, I haven't, like,
I don't know how to do this.
Let's say you get in a relationship. No, seriously, you get in a relationship when you're fucking like 16, 17 years old, and now you're 23, 24. It's like, well, shit, like, I've never been a single person as an adult, you know what I mean? And that becomes scary. And so it's like, I'm not breaking up. You know what I mean? Like, I'm fine here. Yeah. Everything's comfortable. Everything's fine. My world is together. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna disturb that. And that leads to staying in a relationship longer when maybe you shouldn't have.
Put that to the scale of marriage.
And then you get married.
Yeah.
And then you have divorced. Kids, and then you get divorced. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And that's literally, I guess, those situations. Well, I would be so curious to know, and I mean this in the most sensitive way possible, but I would be curious to know between your parents if there was this feeling that it wasn't going to work much earlier on. Have you ever asked them about that?
Well, not when I was younger, because I didn't really understand. Like, I wasn't old enough to know what's going on. But now that I'm older, I know my mom and my dad quite well. Yeah. Based on who they both are as people, I don't know why the fuck they got married. No, like, seriously, I don't know why the fuck they got married in the first place. You know what I mean? They're two completely different fucking people.
I mean, just knowing them myself, I would agree. Right? They are very different.
Like, you haven't had that many...
mine's a very, like...
Yeah, you haven't
skimming the surface.
Yeah, exactly. You haven't had that many interactions with my mom and my dad, but... me knowing the both of them, and even you can say the same thing, that you can kind of just see, like, why the fuck did they get married in the first place? They're two completely different people. You know what I mean? Yeah. In terms of personality and, like, you know what I mean? I literally don't, because they split up when I was so young. Yeah. Like, I never got to see what it was like when they were together. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I was so young, so I didn't know what that dynamic was like. But
it'd be kind of cool to see, though.
I know, right? But, like, seeing them both now, like, it's weird to me. Like, trying to think of my mom and my dad together, that's weird. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which is a weird thing to think about.
That's a weird thing to say.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to say. But, like, thinking of my mom and my dad together is a weird thing to think about because of the fact that they're such different people. Like, I really don't know why they got married in the first place. You know what I mean? And if I can even see that, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I would like to know the story there, but, like...
What's so crazy, though, is you can see that from kind of like a mile away.
Yeah.
You know?
You know what I mean? Like, if you can even notice that.
Yeah, but... And for me, it's just a very naive, like, looking at it like, oh, they are really different. Like, they're just different. Mm-hmm. But then you actually being there as their kid, like, for you to notice that too. Like, yeah. This is not planned, but this book in front here on top of the magazine, it's called Blink. It's by Malcolm Gladwell. And it talks about, like, making split-second decisions that's the dumbest sentence I've ever said. Split-second decisions in a short amount of time. split second decisions. It talks about like having.
I think
like
you
a
can just
thought
shorten
and,
that
like, a
to
decision.
making split second
Yeah,
decisions.
straight up,
When maybe you can say like making split second decisions when you shouldn't be.
Yeah, like with
I think
very
that's kinda
little
what you're
information.
getting at. Yeah.
But it talks about people making the right split second decision.
Yeah.
The starting story talks about this statue called the Kouros. It's like a style of Greek statue.
Yeah.
And it was presented to this one museum, and they're like really stoked to get it because it was in amazing condition. And so they look at the statue and they're like, holy shit, like this is the best conditioned Kouros we've ever seen.
Yeah.
They bring in some guy to analyze it and look at it. He takes one look at the thing and says, nah, like you don't want to buy this.
Yeah.
Like that's a mistake, but has no idea why. He can't say why you shouldn't buy this. And so they start taking it over the course of a couple of years. They show it to other museums and they take it to other experts. Yeah. And everybody's coming to the same conclusion, but can't figure out why something looks wrong with it. It looks perfect. Yeah. Like it passed all the tests. It has this like residue on the side of it, like on the outside, that only forms with time. And what they end up discovering after a few years is that someone, whoever made this ultimately fake Kouros, was able to chemically like induce the process to make this film that naturally occurs on the outside of the statue.
Yeah.
And so it made it look like a perfectly real Kouros, but people just had like an inkling. A later story in there, because it uses other examples, is about this marriage guy who looks at couples, and will watch a 20-second video of them and can tell with over 90% certainty, 95% or something like that certainty, whether or not they're going to split up from a 20-second video.
That's
crazy.
That is crazy.
That's crazy. And it comes
crazy.
down to all these little things, but it's like you can make these little assessments in a short amount of time, which then begs the question. It's like, why do people end up together?
Yeah. Because
when they shouldn't.
Because it's weird because like if you can see that as an outsider, you know, from just witnessing two people interacting for a little bit.
And keep in mind, though, I've only known your parents when they're split up, so I have only seen them split up.
Yeah, you know that's true. But we're going off of like you interacting with them individually. You know what I mean? Like just saying hi and you know how are you, blah blah blah,
very
and whatnot.
Different.
And then if you can make that assumption, you're right. It begs the question: is like why those two people could not have figured that out sooner? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, then at the same time, it makes you wonder, like, there must have been some reason to be together. Or, I mean, think about your first girlfriend and my first girlfriend. Both started in high school. Both lasted a few years. Mine was 4 years. Yours was...
about the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like just going back to our point we talked about, sort of like that fear of like what's outside of that.
Yeah.
Like I felt that. When I was
too.
wanting to split up, because I remembered like the last year or so of it, it was like for both of us not right.
Yeah.
You know,
I know exactly.
And I feel I feel like knowing your situation, I feel like you maybe felt the same way.
Yeah.
And
I think we had a very similar situation surrounding that. Yeah. Yeah.
But it just blows my mind that can continue on a scale for years.
Exactly.
And years
like
years. You can let yourself have a kid.
Yeah. Like you remember that feeling surrounding that. It's like, you know what I mean? It's hard to take that first step in like saying, you know what I mean? Like, I think I need to step back from the relationship. This isn't going to work. You know what I mean? That's super hard, but we did it. There are a lot of people who just don't.
There's people
and
who
it
don't.
just keeps going. You know what I mean?
But I mean, I guess like we'll never know until I hope we don't all experience this shit. I don't want us all going through divorce. But like if you maybe people do get married and they're really happy. Like they don't have that inkling, and maybe it comes on just way later into the marriage. You don't know.
That's also a thing too. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about asking your parents about it?
Honestly, no, man.
Yeah.
Like
it's not a hole you want to go down.
It's not a hole you want to go down, and just in general, like I don't have that kind of relationship with the both of them. You know what I mean? Like sounds.
It's a touchy conversation too.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. My thinking of my own situation with me and my mom, sure, we're close, but I've never really talked with her about why she hasn't had a partner.
Yeah.
It's come up like once before, and I understand from her that it was kind of like choice was not to do that. But I've never had like a real like sit down talk. Hey, Ma, we could have this talk if you want. But yeah, man, it's all just kind of interesting. Your family situation at home then, like I remember going through high school, there were periods of time where you spent a lot more time at your mom's, periods of time where you spent a lot more time at your dad's.
Yeah.
Why was that? Like going back and forth. Why did it shift so much?
I think that was more just personal choice as I got older. You know what I mean? honestly, a lot of it was as we got later into high school, I started staying at my mom's more because she went to work early, like at the kind of the same time school was, so I would fucking sleep in and fucking not go to class, and they would call her, like, you know, the automatic thing that would call the house. They'd call the house, I'd pick up the phone and hang it up. Because originally I started calling my dad. No, I started calling my dad, but then at the beginning of the year they'd give you forms, and I put my mom's phone number down because I knew that she would be
You're such like a smart, lazy kid. You know that? Like,
yeah, I know. So I put my mom's phone number down because they always used to call my dad. So then they started calling my mom, but she would be at work, so she couldn't object to anything, right? So then,
I have always said this about you, and I've said it to you. Like Seb and I, we've talked about it. When you care enough about something, you try so fucking hard. And when you care enough to not go to school, you try so hard.
To like not go. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like, oh man, what was the stats? It was some crazy stat. But like, for the record, Devon is graduated from high school. He's a smart enough dude. Like, the stats of your missed attendance, you missed an entire year of high school.
I think so, yeah. I mean, you're saying it like, yo, this guy, like, it's something to brag about, but it's not, man. But like,
do you think that the going back and forth between houses, just because you mentioned it before, you talked about that back and forth, did that play in at all to you academically?
Honestly, like that's a good question, and that's something that I don't think I could answer because I don't know that about myself. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that affected me or not. I don't know if I would have behaved otherwise had I not been exposed to a family situation like that. You know what I mean? Like, if I had a wholesome family with both my parents together, blah, 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 would I have behaved differently throughout school or just in general? You know what I mean? Those are kind of behavioral attributes and traits that I wouldn't know about myself because, you know what I mean? I haven't experienced otherwise.
Yeah. So. It's such like a hypothetical. Yeah. You know, like you'll never be able to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's a good question though, but that's something that I just wouldn't know. You know what I mean? I do wonder that sometimes. You know what I mean? Like how my life would have turned out if the situation at home was different. You know what I mean? Because, you know, my parents have always pressured me to go to school, you know, go to post-secondary, all that kind of stuff, as most parents do. You know what I mean? And just I never applied myself. That was never something that, you know, I did or wanted to do.
And again, for the record, you're doing great. So
you're fine. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. So.
But like, I remember going through school when I started university. I was originally in criminology. I ended up graduating with a bachelor's of science in, what did I even get? Bachelor's of science in health sciences with an emphasis on population and quantitative health studies. Okay.
How much money you spent on
I don't know. It doesn't even matter. But I remember one of the earlier courses in criminology, there are a lot of studies that look at family dynamics, and there are some studies that look at divorce. And there is actually a correlation between sometimes like less academically, I don't know what the right word for this would be, someone who is just not as inclined to be into academics when their parents are divorced.
Is that something that you've read?
100%. I read that we had classes about it, and so that's why I asked that, or part of why I asked that, because I don't know, there's crazy studies. Have you ever heard of twin studies too, where the twins get split? Ridiculous. It's so crazy. So obviously twins, like genetically, they're the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, the same thing. But there are these studies where the twins get separated at birth. Right, so like they go to different homes. Like one of them gets adopted or something like that.
So they don't know that they were ever twins.
They don't necessarily know that they're twins, but they're also raised in completely different households. They end up having sometimes like similar tendencies. Like there are weird things like genetics will pull together between the two of them, and like they'll like behave the same way. But that's that whole nature versus nurture debate. You know what I mean? Like if you have a kid, like how much of them are going to be like you versus if someone else were to raise that kid, how are they going to behave? And they end up being completely different. Like just because you're twins and you're like genetically identical doesn't mean that you're going to be the same as the other person at all.
That's the conclusion that I would have come to, you know what I mean? I thought you were going to say the opposite.
No,
and then I was going to say, genetics extends, you know, into behavioral traits too. But then I guess maybe not.
But I feel like that in a way plays into how a family's dynamic can affect you. Earlier, you pointed out the fact that my mom and I, we have a good relationship, right? If we didn't, I feel like I would be a drastically different person than I am today. Because if I, like, that's then my only parent. If my only parent and me being an only child, if that wasn't a good relationship, if that wasn't a good household, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
You know,
definitely.
And so I think
that's a big point.
Nurture part of
I think that would be a huge thing because especially since you would essentially be alone. You know what I mean? Like if you didn't have that connection with your mom, you would be fucking alone. Like
sometimes I wish I had siblings, man. Like
really, cool. Yeah.
I'm so glad that I have all y'all because like y'all filled that void like pretty well, right? There's quite a few of you and enough time to spend. But yeah, I have wondered before, like, it would be cool to have a sibling.
Yeah. I
don't know if I would want, like, an older, younger, whatever. It's way too late now. Like, I'm not getting a sibling now.
Mom?
Get back in there. But, like all my cousins are older than I am, right? So another side effect or consequence of me having just my mom is I have one side of the family, right? Like you talked about your dad's family is pretty large, and then you have your mom's family. I have just my mom's side. Right. Yeah. And so on my mom's side, she has her 3 siblings, 2 of whom have kids. One of the 2 who has kids is in Winnipeg. I'm not ever seeing this person.
Winnipeg.
I think so. Yeah, Manitoba, somewhere over there. They're over in there. And then the others that's Uncle Ian then, and he has the 3 kids of his own. All 3 of his kids 10 years plus older than me, right? So there's like a generational gap, and I was never even like remotely close to them until like well into post-secondary. Like only in the last couple of years, I've like started talking more with one of my cousins, Sheila, and we're like kind of like back and forth. She gives me like feedback on the podcast. My point of me saying all this is that like, I realize I'm like rambling here. My point of me saying all this is that my family, immediate family, is very, very small. And so I have this one little relationship with me and my mom, and that's it. Right. Yeah. And so I feel like her nurturing effect must have been huge. Yeah. Right. Whereas you have 2 people trying to nurture you and 2 families trying to nurture you. Yeah. And so it's kind of like building you into 2 people. Like that's the way I'm seeing it. Which
I know what you mean. I feel like that does have an impact in a way because like there wouldn't be like, you know how sometimes I guess you could do things, you know, with each family, but like, you know how sometimes, you know, families go out together and, you know, do things and do a lot of things together. You know what I mean? I had a lot less of that because my parents are very busy. You know what I mean? They both work.
That's one thing I noticed too, just to say for a moment, your parents both work incredibly hard.
Yeah.
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 Anyway,
so they're always, families doing things. They're always working. And so families doing things together, you know, we never really did that. And I feel like we didn't have vacations. No, that didn't happen. Like I never left the country until I was like,
dude, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Weird.
Well, I've been to the U.S. a couple places in the U.S., but I've never been outside of like Canada or the U.S. for like a long time until I was like 14, 15.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that was not a thing. You know what I mean? And I guess that's also a thing to do with like, you know, if your parents don't make that much money, then obviously that's not going to happen either. But it would be a lot easier to do if your parents are together. You can go on a family trip and all that kind of stuff.
You have a joint income on one home.
Income, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
But yeah, I think, you know, we never really had that many sort of bonding experiences as a family, and not separately either, just because, you know, they were so busy. But I feel like, that had a little bit of impact, you know what I mean? So like I said, not a lot of people have that good of a relationship with their parents like you do with your mom. You know what I mean? Like just think of our group as an example. You know, like who do we know that has that? Someone might have a pretty good relationship with their mom, but
that makes me like I'm just thinking right now about like all the trips I've gotten to do with my mom and all that stuff. Yeah,
exactly. Like, you guys like
I should be
going to Japan,
even more thankful about that.
Yeah.
Wow,
that's a good thing. Like a lot of people don't have that.
Yeah,
a lot of people.
Yeah. Nah, man, it's interesting how much of an effect just like small things, family dynamics can have on you. Yeah, you know. No, you made a really good point, dude. Like, I'm stuck thinking about this now. Like, just the whole vacation idea too.
It's almost like something that you probably. It's almost like something that you probably just thought was normal.
You're not conscious of it,
you're not conscious of it. You just took for granted, or like.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's taking it for granted.
Yeah, like I'm doing these cool things with my mom. A lot of people don't do that, man. Like.
What the hell, man?
Yeah.
What the hell? And you raise another good point too, which is like both of your parents are incredibly hardworking, and so they're just trying to provide enough for y'all to continue doing whatever you got to do too, right? Like, it's so weird. Like as a kid, You know, you don't think about the fact that your parents live their own lives too.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know exactly.
You know, it's like they're your parents. They're there to take care of you.
Yeah.
You don't think about the fact like they got a friend at work here, so whatever. You know what I mean? Like they got their own lives.
It's weird, especially at least in my case, especially if your parents are a little bit older. You know what I mean? Like it's always weird to think about like they need to do their own thing too at sometimes, you know what I mean? They need to have friends, they need to go, you know what I mean? But a lot of their life is obviously devoted to you as the child and your family. And so, you don't realize that they need to do their own thing sometimes as well. And
I wonder if in the case of parents splitting up like that, I wonder if there's like, do they get more of their time back after a split? Than before. That's just something.
Well, if in terms of them splitting, it would probably feel that way to them because they wouldn't want to be together to begin with the other person. So that obviously has its own host of sort of issues, as in like, you know, you're feeling kind of trapped or whatever. You don't want to. Yeah.
So I think overall, though, what I'm hearing from you is that I think the most important thing that I've heard from you, at least in what you're going to take into your future life, is that you want to not have this happen to your kids.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that the marriage that you end up in is ideally the till death do us part marriage, you know?
I mean, yeah,
but whatever happens, I guess.
Yeah, but like that should be the goal for people when they get married. You know what I mean?
Like if you're going to do it right.
Like I feel like these days people just kind of like, it's not that it doesn't mean that much. Like you like people are saying these vows and it's not really like they're not taking
they're saying vows to make them sound nice for their Instagram posts.
Exactly. And they're not taking it to heart and actually like, you know, believing in what they're saying, right? And that's another thing is like I want to make sure I have a good relationship with my future children. You know what I mean?
Very important.
Yeah.
I
want to be like, you know, friends with your kids.
You should be friends with your kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All in all, to summarize our conversation here, how have you felt going through divorce or seeing your parents go through? You haven't been divorced. Seeing your parents go through divorce.
Not yet. I hope
not. How would you say seeing your parents go through divorce has affected maybe your outlook on relationships yourself?
Honestly, I think that I've handled it pretty well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think that a lot of people have a lot more issues or a whole host of issues, you know, stemming from that. But my outlook on relationships is, like I said before, that I just kind of observe, you know, what goes on, you know, between the dynamic between my parents and, you know, sometimes other relationships too, like, you know, between friends and whatnot. And that's why that is why I'll bring this up, why I feel so passionately. That's part of the reason why I feel so passionately about a lot of the relationships in our friend group. And you'll know
I know exactly.
You'll know exactly what I'm talking about, man. Right. But that's why I try to bring up a lot of these points when people in the friend group are talking about this and that about their relationships. You know what I mean? And I'm saying like some of the stuff that people have said to me in terms of, you know, their significant,
like things not working and stuff.
Yeah, in terms of their significant other, I'm like, what are you saying, man? You know what I mean? Like it's because of that. I've been through it as a child. Like I know that people who are, you know, when they're with their significant other, they're thinking about just them. But if you, at the end of the day, want to create a family, you have to think about more than just the two of you. You know what I mean? You got to think about your future kids and all that stuff. Like I said, not just 5 years in the future, 10, 20 years in the future. How is this going to work? And there's a lot of things that you can know early on. Like if you're having this many problems, this many arguments when you're fucking 24, 25, what about when actual life issues show up? You know what I mean?
No.
You come into issues with money, finances, kids, all that sort of thing. It's not going to work. And I get that it's easy for me to say these things to people, you know what I mean? Because it's like, well, no, I feel this way about this person, but
use your brain.
Yeah, like that's what it's like at the end of the day. And that's why I feel kind of so passionately about it.
I've never thought about it that way hearing from you.
Yeah.
Like when you give me shit about like my past relationships.
I'm not just talking about you.
I know you're not.
Yeah.
But like, it's very easy to, exactly like you say, you get on the defensive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like someone who's in that relationship can be like, no, they don't see it my way.
Yeah, because I've been there too, man. It's not like I'm like, obviously it's easy for me to say this and that about somebody else's relationship, but I've also been there. You know, I've had my fair share of relationships, you know what I mean? And I know how it works. I've kind of been there, you know what I mean? And I know that it sucks sometimes, you know, when you have to deal with these issues, but the reality of the situation is
you have to deal with them.
You have to deal with them. And in the future, if you look at your relationship as a whole, you need to look at all these things that are not working. Is that going to change in the future? Yeah. And if the answer is no, then it sucks, but you have to suck it up and realize that you have to take a step back and be like, it's not going to work. And I need to get over that. You know what I mean? It's easy for me to say, but also I've been there, so I can kind of, you know what I mean? I think that my opinion is like,
it's valid. You've seen
valid.
like you've seen both ends of it.
Yeah, exactly.
You've watched like a fully matured relationship go through a split,
and
affect you as a kid, and then you've also been through relationships where you realize this isn't going to be a marriage that works. Why am I still in this?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't know, like relationships, they're not all meant to be forever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like if you're gonna waste a ton of time, why are you doing it?
Yeah. But
you know
like
I mean?
if you're earlier on, and that's fine too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Enjoy the fun times. Like you're
go
learning
out
things
there.
in
Yeah, exactly.
too.
Go out there, try, have relationships, learn. But as we get older, man, like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If you keep going back and forth with the same person, like it's
what are you doing sometimes?
I don't think it's gonna work, man.
Yeah.
There are exceptions, absolutely, but you know what I mean. Sometimes you have to take a step back and just look at things objectively.
Mm-hmm.
You know
That's what I think about, like what's
worth
it.
But it really is hard to detach from the emotions. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And think, I know. Like,
I fully understand that. Yeah. Dad, thanks for coming on, man. Dude, I really, really enjoyed this talk. Actually, like I'm way more than I expected. I thought like this, like it's so funny.
Let's
like
keep
talking to. Definitely can have you back, and we'll talk about like anything else. I just try to keep these under a certain amount of time.
I know. Yeah.
But anyways, Dev, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Really great talk. Man. My takeaway from this is to be like, I don't know, just more objective around my own relationships when I think about it too. But like, if I know somebody like yourself who, if I understand your parent structure and understand that you've gone through divorce, like hearing things that you say now, I'm going to hear in a different light. Like, I mean, I think sometimes, especially when they're talking about relationships, like what you just shared at the end here, it's like, it's coming from a different place. It's coming from a place that is like genuine, I don't know, like care for the other person, like the person that you're speaking to in this moment, even though it might sound like you're being like, get out of that relationship, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, but that's what I feel
it's
like.
coming from a place
Yeah,
where
I feel
it's
like too many, like, I feel like, because obviously I have a very direct and like brash way of saying things.
Great stuff, man.
To you and other people. But no, but I feel like a lot of people is like, oh, like, you know, he's being an asshole, but it's not, man. Like, why would I care so much about what, you know, you're going through? Because you're my friend and I care about you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
And when talking about any of these guys, like, you know what I mean? Like, and that's why, you know,
this is the love that matters. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
This is the love
I just want to make sure that you'll be happy at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because like maybe right now it's not a big deal, but I can see through. You know what I mean? Well, I'm not a fucking.
But I know what you mean. It's
you know
easy,
I mean? Like,
especially from outside looking in.
Yeah.
It's easy to be objective about things, and you
Yeah.
take that emotion out because you're not the one involved.
Yeah.
And that can be good sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, like it's of course you're
provides
supposed
a
to think
different
emotionally
perspective,
about your relationship, but at the same time, sometimes emotion. We said it from the very beginning. Love is blind sometimes. Right? You can have that blind love. And sometimes it doesn't make sense to be blind anymore, man. Put your glasses on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Put your glasses on, baby.
Yeah. All right, man. Hey, great talk. Thanks for coming. I'll see y'all next week. And I don't know. At this point, I haven't recorded the other one, so I don't know who's next. But whoever's next is going to be great, I promise. See y'all next week. Have a good night. Peace. Buddy, man. Fucking, oh, my God, dude. That was actually so good. I'm fired up right now.